Hello and welcome to Collect Genesis. As of mid-May 2026, this channel has passed 5,000 views. Thank you to everyone who has watched. For this video, I will show you my collection of unofficial recordings, or bootlegs, that cover the Peter Gabriel years. I collected these items at record fairs back in the early 1990s. At the time, I paid for these items, but today, most of them can be found online from Genesis enthusiasts, often in lower generation restored versions with corrected dates, song details, and period correct photographs. Today, I would never pay for unofficial recordings, as the artists receive nothing from these sales, and in many cases, the material is being sold illegally. I present them here only to illustrate a period in time. Right, let's have a look at what I've got here. The first item is Genesis From One Fan to All Others. This is the cover. It's a 3 CD box set. It's a little difficult to show you on here because it comes in this long form case. Here's the booklet inside. It looks official, but this is actually a bootleg. It has many photographs from the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway era inside it. This is well documented on Discogs. And of course you're unable to buy it because it's an unofficial release. I would have bought all these items back in the early 1990s. And I would have paid quite a lot of money for them at the time. Anything from £5 all the way up to like £25, which is a large amount of money. There's the first disc. I've added my own little detail inside, which may or may not be correct. This first disc has BBC sessions on it. There's Silver Song, which was recorded 1973 or so, but not released. And Going Out to Get You. All of these songs, I think, would have been released on later official releases by the band. So there's no actual reason to buy these, seek out these CDs. There's the second disc with my own notes inside them. And that focuses in on the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway mainly. Once again, that's been released in its live form. And the third disc, the same. I think almost exclusively The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway tracks on there. This set, I don't know how much it would have cost me to buy. But as I said, there's no reason to buy bootlegs anymore because they're available in much better versions, period correct photos, etc. nowadays from Genesis enthusiasts around the world. This second release, this is just a single disc. This is not official. It looks official. It looks like the first generation of Genesis CDs, the format, but it is not official. This one's called Happy the Man, this album. This is actually Paul Whitehead artwork here on the front and on the back. I don't think Paul would have got any payments for the use of his artwork here, which is another reason not to support unofficial recordings. The track listing here focuses mainly on BBC sessions. There's also Happy the Man, Twilight Ale House, Silver Song, and Evil Jam Part 2. Also falling into the section of compilations is this release, Genesis, the Unreleased Collection. And this kind of vela blue material. This is a 2 CD set. Once again, most of this material is available officially. Inside here you've got a card. I put these in these jewel cases to protect the discs. There's the first CD there. This is an information booklet, little disc of paper, giving a little bit of information. On the back you've got this artistic kind of image here of the fish on a plate. Once again, it's mostly made up of BBC sessions and The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway live, with a few other tracks from just before The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway there. The most outstanding part of this release is Stagnation, which features the Treasure Trove lyrics, which I haven't seen released officially, but maybe one time we'll see that released. The next disc is called Besides the Silent Mirror. Once again, I've got my little bit of information inside there, which may or may not be correct, as I said. But this is possibly the earliest recorded music in a live setting from the band. Long-term fans will know that this is, I think, the only concert that was recorded where you will hear a track called The Light, which is a remarkable track. I wonder if any tribute groups have attempted to play that track in a live setting, with the band's permission, of course. I'd be interested to know if any tribute bands have attempted to replicate that track. The recording itself is pretty ropey, but you can appreciate the music on these audience recordings. That's how many of these concerts here were captured. Simply someone in the audience recording the music. So the quality is compromised. The next one is called Studio. Actually, I didn't show the inside of, besides the silent mirror. Let's open that up quickly to show you. Yep, not a time period correct photograph in there, but that's to be expected with bootlegs. Okay, the next one is called Studio. There's a reasonably time period correct photograph. The track listing on this one is Dancing with the Moonlit Night, the second part, which suggests that the whole song wasn't captured. Only Your Love, rehearsal, Only Your Love, finished version. So there's some kind of tracks here that would have been recorded with Anthony Phillips kind of era Genesis, including Master of Time. Yeah, this is a very Anthony Phillips kind of era kind of release. Includes a couple of versions of Silver Song. It's been a while since I've actually listened to this CD, so I'll have to do more information. If you've got any questions about these bootlegs, I'll be happy to answer any questions about them. Did I open this one up? Let's have a look inside. I do like that picture. I'd like to know which photographer took that photograph. That's probably when the band didn't have very much money, and quite easily dateable from the vehicles in the background. Some of these photographs are fascinating. The next one is called Tango. Features Peter Gabriel being winched aloft on wires as the band plays. I don't want to get too bogged down exactly which performances are featured on these CDs, because occasionally they're wrong. But fans do know when these audience recorded material were actually recorded, and there are online resources to actually tell you this information. It's a wonderful photograph there of the bands with Peter Gabriel actually all in silver. Obviously this picture was taken in the United States on some kind of parade. Is this New York City? Not quite sure, but it's a wonderful picture. Once again, which photographer took these pictures? Fantastic picture. I know Armando Gallo was a prominent photographer of the band at this time. Did I open this one? I keep on forgetting to open them up, don't I? Let's open the same picture again inside. The next one. Now this is Genesis, recorded live in Basel, Switzerland, January 1972. Now I happen to know that that is not the right venue for this recording. This features Return of the Giant Hogweed, Fountain of Selmasis, Twilight Alehouse, Musical Box, Stagnation, Happy the Man. Now I do remember this recording was actually a not so good to play. Still appreciate the music on it, but not such a great recording. More historical, as most of these recordings are. They have historical significance in the fact that they were recorded in the first place. This next one, Genesis, Watford, Technical College, 4th of March 1972 is the title. There's that photograph again of the band bounding through an English street somewhere. Nice photograph of Peter there. And it's obviously a copied CD inside. Just a very simple cover. And a blank inner sleeve there, which goes to show the quality of these items that were sold at record fairs back in the 90s. You cannot get them now. There are regulations nowadays to stop traders selling these. The next one, if I can get it, is Roma, 18th of April 1972. Reasonably time correct photograph there. There's the track listing. Nice photographs inside. I did actually listen to this last night, and it's actually a really good, solid recording, historical recording. They had a technical problem in Italy with the power, and I think Steve Hackett's guitar briefly did not work. So Phil played this impromptu drum solo, which the Italian audience really reacted to, really liked. In fact, you see the great reaction to the band at that time. They really appreciated the bands coming to Italy. The next few CDs are mainly, I think, from studio recording, unused studio recordings. It's a little bit difficult to tell. This is In the Beginning. This is volume 1. For these CDs, they follow the same kind of format throughout. And there's quite a haphazard track listing, but they're all taken from some kind of studio recordings, not fantastically well reproduced, but fascinating from a historical point of view, including Silver Song, Only Your Love. The track listing on these is notoriously unpredictable. So what is on here is not exactly what you get sometimes. Inside, pseudo official kind of looking booklet, fold out booklet inside, but it's not official, it's copied from another source. We move on to the second. In the beginning, volume 2. All of these CDs are covered in the Discogs website, which is a great resource to use. Once again, Happy the Man, Silver Song, and Anthony Phillips era tracks on there. Very relevant to the Genesis history. Once again, features the pseudo-official booklet. In the beginning, volume 3. Multiple takes of the same song. Once again, Silver Song is featured on there. But generally, there's a lot of Lamb era tracks on there. I seem to remember on one of these CD there's some indistinct, but there's an argument between the band about Phil's drumming, about the regularity of Phil's drumming, which is hard to make out, but you can tell that the band aren't happy. In the beginning, volume 4. There's Happy the Man again, Silver Song again, Only Your Love. Studio improvisations are quite fun. There's a fast version of one of these tracks. Where is it? Yeah, the Cinema Show fast instrumental take. I think that's where the band are letting off steam and just experimenting with their rehearsed tracks. Particularly letting off steam when they cover The Last Time, Jagger and Richard songs, Rolling Stones song, and You Really Got Me by Ray Davies. That descends into chaos at the end. But it's a way, I think the band found a way of letting off steam during the intense studio time, which at that time they would have been paying for studio time, unlike the later era where they had their own studio. That is actually the best of the bunch, I think. That's the problem with buying these unofficial recordings, which you should never do now, as I said. But when you get one of these recordings, it's a historical document that's out there. This is In the Beginning, Volume 5. There's lots of Selling England by the Pound era tracks on there. The pseudo-official inner sleeve has changed there. to a more generic track listing. When did it disappear? Let's have a look. It's volume 4 got the pseudo. No, that's the track listing inside. And volume 3, track listing inside. So it's only the first couple of volumes that actually had that pseudo-official inner sleeve in. There was actually a volume 6 that I've noticed listed on Discogs, but I never saw that. I never bought that one, so that one escapes my attention at the time. Then we move on to Watcher of the Skies. There's Peter Gabriel as Britannia. This says it's recorded live at the Rainbow Theatre, London, 1972. Subject to that being right, there's the track listing there. Inside the disc, and the next one. First, We Were Five. Atmospheric image of Peter Gabriel there. Selling England by the pound kind of track listing there. Medford MA, Tufts University, 7th of November 1973. That's inside. On these recordings, you'll often hear chit-chat from the audience who are next to the whoever was recording them, cutting in. Genesis, This Planet Soil. Group photo of the band there, complete with Peter Gabriel with shaved head. Inside, Peter as Britannia. Again, they didn't have much money to spend on these costumes, but he certainly put them to good use. As for what this image is, no idea. Okay, next we move on to Academy of Music. Peter with his Batwing costume. And with flute. I seem to remember on this disc there's what sounds like a teacher or some kind of teacher shouting at the audience members to sit down. They must have been instructed to stay sitting during the performance. That's quite amusing to hear an older man shouting at the audience to sit down. Now, this next double CD is perhaps one of the most bootlegged recordings live in Montreal. Pete with his flower costume. There's the track listing. And the 2 discs there. These record companies are not worth mentioning because they weren't real entities, I don't believe. They just trying to give it a semblance of being official, but they absolutely weren't. Next one I'll show you is this. Now whoever made this bootleg went to the extra trouble of putting it into a tin box. Genesis musical box. You can see what they did there. And this perhaps Victorian image. Not sure where the source of this image is, but I'm sure someone out there would know. Open it up. You've got this card showing somehow some kind of warranty certificate, which probably isn't worth the paper it's written on. These purple stamps, I noticed these quite a lot on what I think are Italian bootlegs. Once again, there's like some kind of semblance of trying to make it look like an official release. And on the back, get that clipped close, it simply says musical box. Also includes the knife, in the cage, hairless heart, carpet crawl, the waiting room, and anyway. So dominated by The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway live tracks. Now we move into The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway items. This one's called Outtakes. And the track listing is here. And these are like studio outtakes, just like what we saw on the in the beginning CDs. Quality is not fantastic. That gives a little insight on what the life in the studio would have been like for the band. Now this next CD is amongst the earliest. I think this was from 1990 this was released, if the date's to be believed. This is Lamb's Stew. I think you can guess what material will be on this disc. Very helpful. It says, for full track information, see booklet. Peter Gabriel as the old man for musical box track. But this is A Lamb Lies Down on Broadway live recording. Next, Super Golden Radio Show number 22, live in London, 1975. Peter suspended from wires above the stage. Peter, I think, had some experiences where he went out of control and spiraled round in circles and found it difficult to write himself and sing at the same time. There's the reverse. Lamb Lies Down on Broadway live tracks. And inside there. I've had these CDs for coming on for more than 30 years now. And I don't honestly play them an awful lot. I've only recently dug them out. Next one is Tales of Ordinary Madness. I think this is the youngest of all these CDs. I think this was released in about 1996. By that time, I'd really stopped buying bootlegs. I think I was getting a bit cynical about the quality you would get and the unpredictability of the material. Once again, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. You'd often buy a recording thinking it's a different recording, only to find that you've already listened to that same recording. Next one. Rail Imperial Aerosol Kid. Double CD. Nice group photograph there. As said, this is at the Palace Theatre, Providence, the 12th of December 1974. It's the first disc. And the second disc. And lastly, we have The Real Last Time. I don't think this was actually the last time the band performed The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway live, but it may be one of the last performances, if the date's to be believed. It says it's in Torino Palasport, Italy, 24th of March 1975. There's the disc. I found that these inserts are just crumbling after all this time. Let's see if I can remove it. There we go. That's the same as the front cover for the booklet. Yeah, this is indeed crumbling, this insert. So there we are. There's my collection of bootlegs from that era. The internet has made collecting and appreciating the band so much easier. You have all the information, if you go looking for it, from certain websites you would need. And the performances are catalogued very well by enthusiasts. Well, if you've got any questions, drop me a comment. Please like and subscribe if you like what you've seen. And until the next video, bye-bye.